When the soul crosses over, time bends. Even silence learns to speak.
He predicted this long before any current expert even dared to discuss the subject. One of his readings, done in a deep trance state, revealed something few had the courage to ask. How can you tell if a soul has fully crossed over to the spiritual world? This question, quietly weighing on many hearts, was explained in surprising detail. Cayce described subtle signs that usually go unnoticed, visible and invisible clues, shifting energies, changes in the atmosphere, and alterations in the behavior of those who remain. Something that once seemed vibrant starts to fade strangely, as if the soul no longer belongs to this world. Stay with us until the end, because we'll bring a clear summary of these signs, knowledge that can change how you understand life after death. He was born in 1877 in Hopkinsville, Kentucky, surrounded by tobacco fields and the distant whistle of trains. He was a shy boy, a voracious Bible reader, and ready to do anything to help his family. Years later, when he lay on a simple couch falling into an almost cataleptic sleep, his pulse slowed so much it scared those around him. But in that silence, his mind traveled. Described in over 14,000 transcriptions, this inner journey revealed diagnoses that baffled doctors, guidance that saved entire businesses, and most of all, stories about the moment consciousness leaves the physical body. For him, death was like changing clothes. The identity stays, but the heavy fabric of flesh hangs on the rack of time. Maybe you remember that moment when something in the room felt heavy, almost electric, just seconds before you got the news that a loved one had passed, or that lamp that flickered right when you whispered the name of someone who died. For Cayce, these reality twitches aren't coincidences. They are vibrational echoes of a soul in transit. He said that during the first hours, sometimes days, after leaving, the spirit still roams close to the places it loves, trying to send calm, goodbyes, or even advice. If we pay attention, we can notice not just the trembling of a clock hand or the scent of an old perfume, but also subtle changes in how those around us act, sudden tiredness, unexplained crying, a silence that feels heavy like wet cotton. To spot these signs, Cayce suggested 2 simple steps. First, cultivate a calm gratitude. Generous thoughts make your mind more sensitive, like turning up the volume on a radio station that was already whispering. Second, practice deliberate silence, not the heavy silence of repressed grief, but a curious listening break. 5 minutes a day, dim light, no screens. In that space, happy memories come naturally, opening a channel for conversation. Reports archived by the Association for Research and Enlightenment show patterns, vivid colored dreams within the first 3 weeks, clocks stopping exactly at the minute of death and starting again after the funeral, radios turning on by themselves, playing meaningful songs. The more calm there was in the family, the clearer the signs. Maybe you think this sounds romanticized, but stop and think. How many times have you noticed coincidences too perfect to ignore? Neuroscience talks about the reticular activating system, the brain's gatekeeper, that only lets consciousness pay attention to what it considers important. If right now you say, "I want to notice messages from those who left," this gatekeeper will start highlighting details you didn't see before. Cayce, speaking in the 1940s, described the same thing. Focused attention mixed with sincere emotion builds a bridge. So next time a butterfly lands right on a photo of a loved one, hold off on judgment for a moment. Note the time, the setting, how you feel. If the pattern repeats, doubt fades and an intuitive certainty grows. To strengthen this shared awareness, I suggest a quick deal. Whenever you notice one of these signs, share it in the comments. Real stories help others validate their experiences and stop the fear of seeming weird from isolating those who seek comfort. Plus, this collection of experiences helps us map coincidences, times, places, a living mosaic that makes expensive labs unnecessary. If this makes sense to you, hit the subscribe button. It ensures the next episode reaches you regardless of the algorithm's moods and supports this space free from loud ads. Before we wrap this first part, try a quick test. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and think of a beloved person who has passed, choosing a happy memory. Take a deep breath. If you feel a gentle shiver, unexpected warmth, or even a flash of an image, just thank it silently. Don't rush to interpret it. Just hold on to the feeling. In the next chapters, we'll dig deeper into this invisible communication, teaching how to tell real messages from random noise and offering practices to expand your sensitivity while keeping your critical thinking. For now, keep your mind open. Not too much, not too little, just open enough for a sudden beam of light to find its way. Maybe it's exactly the confirmation you were looking for. The mental experiment you just did might have left a strange impression, like when the echo of a song lingers in your ear even after the headphones are off. This after sound of memory is a valuable clue for understanding what slowly happens in the hours and days after the heart's last beat. Edgar Cayce described this phase as a threshold where the soul, still tied to earthly feelings, circulates among loved ones trying to tune its own frequency. He said that right after passing, there's a period of adjustment similar to when someone wakes from a lucid dream and tries to remember the plot before reality dissolves the images. During this time, the spirit looks for signs that it will be remembered with lightness, not despair. How we react shapes the quality of future communication. That's why there's sudden peace that fills the hospital room after the final breath, or the unexplained silence that falls in the living room when the news arrives. It's not just shock, it's the environment adjusting its tuning to welcome something that's drifting away. Those who study different traditions find curious parallels. In ancient Egypt, they spoke of 40 days of crossing, the time needed for the soul to free itself from physical bonds. For Tibetan Buddhists, the bardo is a transitional stage where thoughts instantly become reality until rebirth or ascension. Spiritists use the term perispirit to explain the subtle matter that surrounds consciousness right after death. Cayce wove these concepts simply. He said the soul carries a vibro-spiritual record of recent emotions, and this shows up in the kind of feelings the living notice. If the deceased left in peace, the atmosphere tends to give off comfort. If there were conflicts, it can feel heavy, almost suffocating. It's a sort of emotional thermometer you can't see but can feel, like the pressure change before rain. You might wonder how to tell an authentic premonition from a mental fabrication. Cayce recommended watching for repeats. A single memory might just be longing. 3 coherent events in a short time deserve attention. For example, the same object falls from the same spot at the same time for 3 days with no reasonable explanation. Or a wall clock stops forever at the exact minute a loved one used to call. This triple pattern creates a signature pointing to conscious intent. In letters kept at the Association for Research and Enlightenment, a teacher told how every time she thought of her deceased brother, she smelled fresh-cut grass, and soon after, a student would bring her a fallen flower from the yard. It happened 7 times that semester, until the family found out the brother loved to mow the lawn and tended a small flower bed. Recognizing the pattern brought joy where there was pain, and the teacher herself reported better sleep and less anxiety. There are also curious body changes. People in mourning say they get tingling on the top of their heads or sudden warmth on their shoulders, like a gentle hug. Cayce explained the human electromagnetic field, yes, the same one detected by MRI machines, can be interfered with when emotional connection is strong. Think of an old radio station. Turning the dial slightly sometimes picks up noise that becomes a clear melody for a few seconds. Our biology works like a natural antenna. The trick is not to spin the dial too fast. That's why simple practices like walking without your phone at dawn, keeping a notebook on your nightstand, or turning off electronics for a few minutes before sleep boost your reception of these micro-messages. And this isn't naive mysticism. Clinical psychologists say mindfulness rituals lower cortisol and expand sensory perception, creating fertile physiological ground for noticing subtle signals. Let's talk about pets because they often notice first. Cats staring into empty space, dogs wagging their tails at an empty chair, birds landing repeatedly on a ledge where no one feeds them. Reports come from all over the world, crossing cultures. Cayce said that with less mental noise, animals more easily sense energetic shifts. If you watch their behavior right after a family loss, you might get precious clues. A Labrador barking at an empty hallway at the same time each day, for example, could be responding to a cycle of a spiritual visit, Another clue is changes in ambient light caught by home cameras. Opaque streaks crossing the frame or glowing spots moving intelligently. Before blaming the lens, check if they happen on meaningful dates. But it's not all sweetness. Cayce warned about signs of dissolution, moments when the soul truly moves away for good. That's when the gentle manifestations begin to fade, and the place no longer shows those little disturbances that had become familiar. Instead, there's almost a neutral calm, like the house is breathing a sigh of relief. Objects that seem to carry energy, photos, clothes, keepsakes, lose their emotional pull. Touching them, you don't feel sadness or sharp longing, just a mild melancholy, a sign the bond has loosened. According to Cayce, this stage means the soul found a new vibrational home and no longer needs to keep a constant presence. For those left behind, it might feel like abandonment, but he encouraged seeing this emptying as a victory. Consciousness completed the crossing, freeing us to move on with life too. Practically, you can track this curve by jotting down in a journal any unusual event connected to the departed. Vivid dreams, scents, touches, electrical glitches. Mark the date, time, and feeling. Over weeks or months, your emotional graph shows the trend. Many families report a peak of manifestations in the first week, a gradual drop until the 40th day, small spikes on special anniversaries, and finally, loving silence. This cycle matches Cayce's observations and rituals found in different traditions that suggest masses, prayers, or offerings exactly on those dates. It's no coincidence, but a cultural harmony with a natural soul process. This cycle doesn't have to be painful. Cayce recommended simple, active farewell rituals, writing thank you letters to the deceased, planting a tree in memory, donating something valuable that belonged to them to someone in need. These gestures symbolize release and open your inner space for new experiences. Interestingly, people who practice these report fewer grief nightmares and more comforting dreams where their loved one appears smiling, sometimes younger, confirming they're okay. You can try something similar by picking an object connected to the person, holding it respectfully, thanking out loud for the shared lessons, then keeping or donating it as you feel. It's a small but powerful act. If the longing ever gets too intense, try this quick relief technique inspired by Cayce's advice. Close your eyes. Imagine the person surrounded by soft light. Breathe in slowly, counting to 7. Hold your breath for 7 seconds. Exhale for 7. As the air leaves, picture your tears turning into petals, falling into a calm river, following a glowing current. Repeat 3 to 5 times. Besides slowing your heart rate, this exercise sends a symbolic message of acceptance, making the bond less painful. If it helps, come back and share how it went. Your story might guide others who still doubt the effect. Now, a crucial note on discernment. Don't just accept every creak in the house or every light flicker as a spiritual sign. Cayce stressed the importance of first checking physical causes, loose wires, wind drafts, worn-out materials. He never encouraged cheap superstition. He defended a balance between reason and intuition. Only after ruling out obvious explanations is it worth considering an invisible factor. This two-step process prevents paranoia and supports the credibility of true experiences. In fact, this clear method was one reason many doctors at the time took Cayce seriously, even if they didn't fully understand where his information came from. We reach a delicate point. What if no signs show up? Some people wait, pray, watch the clock, and nothing happens. According to Cayce, that is an answer too. Some souls choose a quiet departure to spare the living from excessive attachment. Others have reached such a full state of peace, they feel no need to look back. In these cases, silence is a blessing, not absence of love. Still, if the longing persists, channel your affection into charity work in the deceased's name. Energetically, this creates a subtler bond and, paradoxically, increases the chance of receiving a nod in a dream or intuition. If you're thinking all this sounds too poetic to convince skeptical friends, remember, science is moving forward. Researchers like Pim van Lommel have published studies on near-death experiences showing active consciousness without measurable brain activity. Biophysics labs study heart coherence, states that can influence electromagnetic fields. Nothing conclusive yet, but the boundaries expand. Meanwhile, Cayce's empirical wisdom offers a practical, accessible, and free roadmap. Just pay careful attention, keep an open mind, and a willing heart. Before this video moves to the next part, do one last exercise. Look around and pick a corner in your home that inspires calm. Place a small symbolic object there, maybe a smooth stone, an unlit candle, or a smiling photo. Every time you pass by, stop for 5 seconds, take a deep breath, and think the phrase, "May peace cross invisible borders." No hidden mysticism here. It's just a mental anchor that, repeated over days, tunes your internal frequency to notice subtle environmental shifts. If after a few weeks something unusual happens there, a scent, a dream, a curious animal passing by, write it down. You might discover communication never stopped. It just waited for you to tune into the right channel. If this conversation made sense and brought you some comfort, write "present" in the comments, followed by a simple emoji that represents light. This small gesture creates a quiet chain of people connected by the same theme and helps the video reach those who may be silently suffering. If you made it this far, you know how every detail matters. So, if you haven't already, consider subscribing. That way you won't miss the next discoveries about this phenomenon that sooner or later touches all families. The passing from one world to another, told not in a dark tone, but a serene note of understanding. See you in the next part, where we'll explore the final filters of this communication and how to turn longing into creative strength to honor those who've moved on, without life losing its rhythm. When Cayce described the conversation between planes, he explained there is no solid barrier separating the living and the dead, just a difference in density. He compared the soul to a beam of light passing through layers of different thickness. The thinner the fabric, the clearer the beam reaching the other side. Elevated emotions thin this veil, while fear and guilt thicken it. That's why certain prayers, songs, or even family laughter create subtle openings where messages come through clearly. He said that during readings, first there was a soft hum, like a distant violin. Then he'd see symbolic images translating thoughts from those who had passed. If the soul wanted to comfort, a vase overflowing with clear water appeared. If warning of a hard choice, a bright crossroads showed up. These scenes weren't made-up metaphors, but an energy language his medium brain converted into words. The same goes for dreams that visit us. The scene is usually simple, but charged with such vivid feeling that we wake sure we got guidance. Write it down before you get up. Cayce recommended writing without filtering because each detail fades like mist in morning light. He also talked about helper messengers, consciousnesses volunteering to mediate contacts when direct bonds weaken. Sometimes it's an ancestor we never met, or a spiritual friend with a frequency closer to matter. You know that dream where a stranger delivers an exact message and then vanishes? That could be this messenger. The key is to value the advice, not the face. Accepting invisible help isn't superstition. It means understanding compassion crosses borders. When you receive guidance like this, thank mentally and take at least one small step to act. Doing something is how you confirm you heard the dialogue, encouraging more exchanges, like answering a letter with another letter. Over time, most notice the flow of signs diminishes. This decline, far from meaning abandonment, signals the soul found the right context to move forward with its learning. Cayce called this point the second birth. The energy that once pulsed around now expands in a wider spiral, and our memory becomes serene longing. At this stage, the best tribute is to live well. Multiply the virtues we admired in the person and transform shadows into service to others. Notice how charitable foundations and artistic projects often appear in memory of those who passed. It's love turning grief into collective action. Every time we do something good in their name, Cayce said, we add brightness to the path they follow. Maybe one last question remains. What if I feel the need to reach out again? His advice was simple. Pick a quiet moment, close your eyes, remember a joyful instant, and softly say you are open to a confirming sign. Then release expectations. True messages come without pressure, like a gentle breeze that doesn't push but refreshes. If nothing comes, accept the silence as a loving answer. Not every care needs words. Think of a mother watching her adult child from afar. She trusts, she doesn't control. In this video, we've gone over energy patterns changing in the home, unexpected physical sensations, repetitions forming a spiritual signature, interventions by watchful animals, and the natural cycle of gradual decline in phenomena. Each piece fits into a coherent mosaic, but none replaces discernment. Cayce insisted, investigate common causes first, then allow yourself to recognize the unusual. The mix of clear mind and compassionate heart avoids both harsh skepticism and naive belief. If any story here reminded you of a personal experience, write something like, "I saw the light," in the comments. No private details, just the symbolic phrase. Besides warming our space, this encourages readers to watch their own journey with less fear. If you feel someone else needs this info, share quietly. Sometimes a message arrives right when pain feels unbearable. And if you want to catch upcoming chapters, just hit subscribe now. It only takes seconds, and make sure the algorithm sends new content your way as soon as it's out. Close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in slowly, counting to 5, and notice your heartbeat. That's the sound of life insisting on going on, a bridge between two worlds meeting in silence. When you open your eyes, carry the certainty that true presence doesn't depend on a physical body. As long as memory is lovingly kept, the bond never breaks. May your listening stay sharp and your path light, because deep down, eternity whispers softly in every breath we take.